America has decided that for the foreseeable future, it is a very limited appetite for military engagement, that its short-term political imperatives have simply squeezed the space for long-term thinking. It is this sense, more than anything else, in my judgment, which gives our allies anxiety and our opponents a belief that our time is over.
Our allies are anxious. Opponents believe our time is over. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair slamming the failures of America's withdrawal from Afghanistan. Author Douglas Murray joins us now on the response from America's strongest allies to President Biden's strategy. Good morning to you, Douglas.
Good morning.
What did you think of that statement? Pretty profound, right?
It was. There are many criticisms that can be made of former Prime Minister Tony Blair, but there are many things to be said for him as well. The most obvious is that he has always retained this grander strategic view, which is frankly missing not just from America, but from all of the NATO countries at the moment. What Tony Blair said, in essence, was, this is a generational problem, the problem of radical Islam. It has to be countered by soft power and hard power. And we have a disadvantage. He said this clearly in a speech once again. He said, we have a disadvantage in the West about this. We think in 2-year electoral cycles, 4 years electoral cycles at biggest. That's the kind of longest time scheme we can even think of. And our opponents in the field of radical Islam think in exceptionally long time frames. And Blair said, we should be doing that as well. But where is the vision on this? Where is the strategy? And I mean, to refine that, he didn't make this explicit in the speech, but it was implicit in it. Where is the thinking in the Biden administration about this whole issue, which erupted in America 2 decades ago? And 2 decades on, the American administration seems to have just sort of wished away.
When he talked about the term ending forever wars, he said, this is a deeply mistaken phrase. We haven't ended this war. We have ended our participation in it. Do you think that's a fair point? I mean, people are very fearful of what's to come, and the Taliban was not defeated. They are taking over Afghanistan once again.
That's right. Blair compared it to the fight against communism, which we were engaged in the West for almost 7 decades. That was, of course, a Cold War. The war on radical Islam has been a hot war as well as a war of hearts and minds. But the real point here that he was trying to bring across, and I agree with this, is that there are things worse than keeping a light footprint in other countries. There are many things that are worse. The one thing that's most obviously worse than a so-called forever war is losing, is retreating, is being seen to have lost by your enemies and your allies.
Especially when you were winning.
That's right. The tragedy of all of this is, as we come up to the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which the Trump administration and to some extent the Biden administration clearly hoped would be the sort of moment when they could say, look, we're out of this, we're finally out, we're done. In fact, 20 years on, all we are seeing is the return to the status quo ante, the return to the pre-9/11 situation. Afghanistan has been returned to the pre-9/11 situation, with billions of dollars of American money having been poured into it, with thousands of lives being lost by Americans, by hundreds of lives being lost by America's allies in Afghanistan. And what do we see? The Taliban back in Afghanistan. Is that problem going to go away? Clearly not. We can't wish it away. The Biden administration seems to have no policy about it, but just hoping that it is over will not mean it is over. It's far from over.
That's right, especially now knowing what we know that happened 20 years ago. That's why our allies, that's why Americans are anxious, because we don't want it to happen again. Douglas, thank you so much for coming on.
Exactly.